Kia ora koutou. Ko Lyndy McIntyre, aho. Well, it's fantastic to be here, and thank you, Mary and Alo. Thanks for having me here at Schrödinger's. It's really special for me. I'll stand, and Mary's quite right. We'll just be pretty informal. I've got a few notes, but I hope I'm not setting out to bore you stupid, so they won't go on for too long. And yeah, by all means ask some questions. But it is really special, and I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but this is kind of, the Hutt Valley is my home. And very close to 72 years ago, I was born in Hutt Hospital. So that's where that journey started, my journey. And I spent all my early years growing up in Stokes Valley, and then as an early teenager moved to Puni, and then, like possibly others of you here, but many of us in the Hutt Valley, daily caught the train and the cable car to head to Victoria University, and then migrated into a student flat. And so that was all my early life here. And my river was Te Awa Kairangi, which to me was, and still is in my mind and in my heart, a really magical river of swimming holes and family picnics, and a really special place for me down at the end of Stokes Valley. And our beach was Pito-one Beach, and that was, I won't go too hard on the memories, but because I've got many, but of Pito-one Beach, but I do have one spectacular one. So at the age of 2, this is how early I started going there, and fully enjoying all the amenities that beach has to offer, that I can thoroughly recommend. I set out on my water wings, leaving my pregnant mother on the beach, having to seek assistance, unable to get me back, and having to seek assistance from another beachgoer. So that's the Hutt Valley to me. That's only a little tiny bit of my memories, and I do share other memories, particularly in the preface of my book, Power to Win, the story of growing up in Stokes Valley. And I've reflected on that quite a lot before coming along tonight, because now the valley, and in fact Aotearoa, is so changed from and some of you nodding your heads, but so changed from our lives in the 50s and 60s. And that's kind of what this book is about. It's about what it was like to be growing up in an Aotearoa of full employment, of a place where, generally speaking, people were doing a lot better than they are now. And these days, the Hutt Valley is a place of hundreds of cleaners, say, for example, just thinking of the low-paid workers that my book is all about. So the Hutt Valley is a place where hundreds of workers are leaving round about now, probably already left, from Stokes Valley and from Nainai, and are heading into town to work one job or 2 jobs or more jobs for very little money, putting in long hours and doing a pretty dirty, hard job for this, probably around the minimum wage, no matter how many years' experience they have and no matter how many people depend on their income. And they're the workers that Power to Win is all about. And they're the workers, just thinking of those cleaners, they're the workers that at my union, which is now Etu Union, there's Shane up there advertising his union, Etu. But in those days, in the days when I was working along the road with John Ryle here, who was the National Secretary of our union at that time. So in 2011, I was working along the road at the Service and Food Workers Union. And guess where that was? Just to come full circle back with this story about coming from the Hutt Valley. But that was in Britannia Street. So our union was based in Britannia Street. Britannia Street, sorry.
Wrong city.
I do know, because I was working there for 4 years, but yeah. So thanks, John. And it's great to have John here tonight, John Ryle and Muriel Tunaho, because that place down there, the Service and Food Workers Union office, where we were working, was the place where John had the idea, an idea that to help, to a strategy about how could we address the question of how the low-paid workers that we represented, who just weren't getting ahead, who lacked the power to win decent wages, what could we do to build more power to address that question. And the idea that John had and shared with me one morning at the office along the road in Britannia Street was to launch the living wage movement. And I'm just going to stop here and read something from my book that is about what I was talking about initially, which is about growing up in the Hutt Valley. And so, hope that's not me. Just about the sort of context that this book is written in and how we get started. Because I've been part of the living wage movement since we got started in 2011, but the book's not really my story. It's the story of the workers, the leaders, and the activists in that movement. And some of you are here tonight. So I'll just go to the preface of the book. Ko Te Awa Kairangi Toko Awa. Beside Te Awa Kairangi Hutt River and just north of Pomari is the entrance to Stokes Valley, where I spent the first 13 years of my life. My friends at Stokes Valley School came from a wide range of families. In Kamahi Street, by the bus barns and the top shops, lived a ship's captain, a dentist, and a dustman. After school, we played in each other's homes. Some were flashier than others, but they were all comfy and warm and dry. We shared meals together. We went to the flicks at the Bug House on Saturday afternoon, down the main road, past the fire station and the butcher's shop. To my young eyes, it looked as if everyone had enough, as if all families did things together. In my Stokes Valley world, where the mum stayed at home and every dad had a job, it seemed as if everyone could afford the fare, the sports gear, or the movie ticket. How different is my old home now? The Hutt Valley is a place of huge disparity, of extreme wealth and poverty. I took a drive up Stokes Valley recently. The streets are worn out and beaten up, and the valley is home to the to the families of low-paid workers who must weigh up what the family can do without. And I see some of you nodding your heads, maybe about the valley and about your memories of how things have changed. Well, Pito-one is about how that change came about, but it's not a history, facts and figures kind of book. It's a book that's a book of stories. And one of the early stories that I tell is about Lemo, who at that time when I interviewed him was living in Stokes Valley Road, just around the corner from Kamahi Street where I grew up. He and his wife were living in a small, pokey, pretty cold flat. He was working as a labourer by day and a cleaner by night on a very low wage. And what Lemo said was when he got to 65, he'll be keeping on working. And because life is work, home, work, home, work. And these are the stories that are told throughout the book. But there are also the stories of the leaders and the activists who've worked together to create the living wage movement and to start the campaigns that have transformed the lives of thousands of New Zealand workers in wealthy corporates, like the entire banking sector. And I'm not talking about just the directly employed people. We're talking about the cleaners, the security guards, the lowest paid of all. So the living wage movement, since that idea that John had in 2011, has won campaigns that have changed the life of thousands of workers. And one of those campaigns, of course, and I was just talking to Julie, we were just talking earlier about the campaign to secure the living wage at Hutt City Council. And those kind of stories are throughout the book. That story of winning the living wage at Hutt City Council is something I think you'll all enjoy. It's a story of the many delegations to Hutt City Council of community people from some of you in this room, but a whole diverse range of people from this community. It's the story of community forums that have taken place in churches and halls around the Hutt Valley, including in Petone. It's the story of a group of passionate and committed people who started meeting not too long after the idea, I guess, maybe around 2011 or 12. And then the big launch that happened in 2016, and then taking on that campaign. But it's also the story that shows that it wasn't always easy to win these campaigns. It was actually a hard slog, but it had to be done, and it was won in the end. It's a story of senior managers or officials at the council who overstepped their authority and tried to block the living wage at every opportunity. It's the story of politicians that you know who reneged on their commitments and had to be, who in one stage I describe as slippery in the book, who really needed to again and again for this community, the people of Hutt Valley, to tell them in no uncertain terms, we want to live in a fair city and we're not going to stop until our council becomes a living wage council. So it's a story of all of those things. And that's the kind of book this book is. It's a tribute to the workers, including lots of workers that live in this community, but workers all over Aotearoa. It's a tribute to all the groups that came together, the faith groups, the community organisations, the unions, who united to build power around the living wage. And it's a tribute to the leaders and activists and everybody. So for everybody who stood up and supported the living wage, it's your story. And I'm just going to finish the formal part of this evening with another brief reading, and that's from the end of the book, from chapter 12, not too many chapters and lots of pictures in this book. Because we know that's how you show people what a campaign's all about. Lots of pictures and lots of real stories, including about your slippery politician. But anyway, he learnt in the end that the best thing to do is to support the living wage, because that's what the community wanted. So, on to page 230. The living wage movement continues to show that it is possible to lift the wages of the lowest paid workers in Aotearoa by building alliance with others. The idea works. It has changed the way we talk about wages in New Zealand. It's changed the way we talk about wages from what is the lowest an employer is actually legally able to pay or get away with paying, to what do workers and their families need to live in dignity and participate in society. It's worked for the thousands of workers and their families who've been lifted from in-work poverty. It's worked for those of us who've experienced the power of community organising and will never return to campaigning in silos, be they in unions, in faith groups or community. The living wage movement used the power of community to win campaigns that seemed unwinnable. This new way of organising revealed a solution to the problem of low pay that faced the Service and Food Workers Union in 2011 down the road in Britannia Street. And for 20 years before that, following the passage of the Employment Contracts Act in 1991. Living wage movement Aotearoa New Zealand and united thousands of ordinary people across diversity and around a common cause. The quest for the power to win just and decent pay rates is as necessary as it was in 2011. I'm just going to pause there for a minute before I end, just to stress that now this is needed more than ever. Now, more than ever, when workers are under attack, we really need to build those alliances together to keep building in the living wage movement and keep uniting around that goal of addressing poverty and inequality. So as long as thousands of workers and their families still bear the brunt of low wages, this idea, this movement, has work to do. Kua tawhiti ke tō haerenga mai, kia kore e haerenga tonu. He nui rawa o mahi kia kore o mahi tonu. We've come too far not to go further. We've done too much not to do more. And that's from Sir James Henry. So for anybody who believes that we've come too far today in 2024 not to do more, we know we've still got to keep doing more, and we've still got to unite and build people power, because that's what we do, and it really makes a difference. And this book is the proof that a movement, a new social movement like the living wage movement, started just along the road in Britannia Street, can set out to really make a difference around something like the living wage. And the stories that are in there, I'm sure, will convince you that that's exactly what can happen. So thank you for listening to this. I threw my notes away because it just seemed a bit too informal. So if we meandered all the way around from down our wonderful river, out on the water wings, out to Matu Soames, well, I hope that's just given you a taste of what this book is all about. Feel free to come up to me and ask questions. If you've got a burning one you want to ask in the room with everyone else, do so. But I'm going to also invite people, if they'd like to buy a book, because we're very grateful for Schrödingers for their hospitality here tonight. So if you'd like to buy a book, by all means go and buy one now, and I will very happily sign it. But do come up with a question or come and talk to me. I'd love that. Thank you. Thank you very much.